Part 1. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jin Kui. Chapter 1. Gu Yunjiao just felt breathless. As if there was something heavy on his chest. Gu Yunjiao remembered that it was an earthquake. She was counting things in the medicine storehouse at home when the earthquake came without warning. She remembered that a whole wall of medicine cabinets fell down on her and she was pinned down. Gu Yunjiao opened her eyes, but it was not as dark as she imagined. There was plenty of light, and a magnified man's face was approaching her. The distance was very close, the man's heavy breathing filled her eardrums, and the man's eyes were red with undisguised desire. Pa Gu Yunjiao slapped the man's face and pushed him back. Go away. When she said the words, Gu Yunjiao was taken aback, her voice was hoarse and unpleasant, and when she spoke, there were bursts of burning pain in her throat. At this moment, Gu Yunjiao's hand was taken away by the man, and the man's hand reached out and grabbed Gu Yunjiao's neck. A strong sense of suffocation came, and Gu Yunjiao vaguely understood the reason for her hoarse voice. She was scratching with both hands, trying to break the man's hand. However, the man's hands were like iron pincers, and Gu Yunjiao's strength was like a mayfly shaking a tree. The sense of suffocation became stronger and stronger, and her brain was almost unable to think. Gu Yunjiao's remaining consciousness told her that if she didn't hurry up and think of a solution, there was only one dead end. She suddenly let go of her hand and touched the surroundings randomly. The touch of her hands made Gu Yunjiao happy. This is in the wild. The next second, Gu Yunjiao closed her eyes and threw a handful of dust on the man with her left hand, and smashed a fist-sized stone into the man's temple with her right hand. What? The man howled and let go of the hand that was holding Gu Yunjiao's neck. Gu Yunjiao took the opportunity to use all her strength to lift the man who was pressing on her. One rolled up and got up, and Gu Yunjiao ran forward desperately. A man's voice came from behind, "Little Biozi, how dare you hit someone? When I catch you, you will be dead." Gu Yunjiao looked back and saw a man with hair tied on top of his head, dressed in short blue and brown, was sitting on the ground and rubbing his eyes. She was in a trance, ancients. At the same time, a large amount of information emerged in my mind, making it seem like my brain was about to explode. As Gu Yunjiao ran, she endured a headache and sorted out the memories in her mind. This little girl who was under 15 years old had the same name as her, and her appearance was very similar to when she was a teenager. This is the great Chu dynasty that did not exist in history. Today is the 72nd day of her Kongzi marriage to the Zhang family. On the day she married, her husband Zhang Dalan died. The man who just intended to molest her was Zhang Erlang, the cousin in the next room of her dead husband. The three houses of the Zhang family are undivided, and they all live in the same courtyard. Usually, Zhang Erlang always touches her. She was just picking up firewood in the wasteland behind the village, and Zhang Erlang ran over and insulted her. Maybe it was because her body was too thin. Gu Yunjiao ran for a while, but she couldn't run anymore. She stopped to take a breath, and glanced back. Seeing this, she was taken aback. Zhang Erlang rubbed his eyes and chased after him cursing. Gu Yunjiao quickly judged the situation. I have short calves now and I don't have the strength. With my physical condition, I will definitely not be able to outrun this tall man with long legs. And she has never learned Kung Fu Taekwondo or anything, and is not Zhang Erlang's opponent. She couldn't run away, she couldn't beat her, but it was not Gu Yunjiao's style to sit still. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jin Kui. Chapter 2. Gu Yunjiao stared at Zhang Erlang without blinking, and grabbed his wrist as he reached over. Then she held Zhang Erlang's shoulder and pressed down with the strength of her body. These movements were done in one go. Zhang Erlang hadn't reacted yet, and his body involuntarily leaned forward with this force. At this moment, Gu Yunjiao quickly raised her left hand up and her right hand moved forward. The next second, Zhang Erlang's pig-killing voice sounded, "My arm." Gu Yunjiao let go of her hand, took a few steps back quickly, looked at Zhang Erlang coldly, and took off his arm. She also had an idea. As a descendant of a medical family, this is only pediatrics. Zhang Erlang howled a few times, and suddenly stared at Gu Yunjiao. "Little Biozi, what did you do to my arm?" As he spoke, he stretched out another hand to grab Gu Yunjiao. Gu Yunjiao sneered. Instead of retreating, she advanced and grabbed Zhang Erlang's injured arm. Generally, if the joint is dislocated, it doesn't hurt much if you don't move it, but when you move it, it hurts to the point of death. Zhang Erlang saw her reach out, suddenly realized something, and hurriedly stepped back. He really didn't want to experience the pain just now. Gu Yunjiao saw that Zhang Erlang did not dare to step forward, and said coldly, "If I were you, I would hurry to find a doctor, otherwise, if time drags on, your arm will be useless." She didn't mean to remind him, but Zhang Erlang was stronger than her even if he only had one arm to move. If he was in pain, subduing her would be an instant thing. She had to get rid of his entanglement as soon as possible. Zhang Erlang's face changed greatly, and he gritted his teeth. "Little Biozi, I'll take care of you when my arm is healed." After speaking, he covered his right arm with his left hand and ran home. Gu Yunjiao watched him run away, patted the dirt on her body, walked not far away, picked up a bundle of firewood on the ground and carried it on her back, and slowly headed back to Jiang's house. As soon as he entered the courtyard gate of Jiang's house, he saw Zhang Erlang and his mother Yang standing in the courtyard. Zhang Erlang roared, "How can these copper coins be enough? I'm going to the county seat by car, and I have to pay the doctor's consultation fee." Gu Yunjiao bypassed the two of them, walked along the wall to the outside of the kitchen, put down the firewood, and then heard Yang's sharp voice, "Gu Yunjiao, you morning star, you have eaten the guts of a bear's heart and a leopard, and you dare to touch my house. Erlang. See if my mother won't kill you." When Gu Yunjiao turned around, she saw Yang with high cheekbones coming over with a door latch. Zhang Erlang followed behind Yang Shi with a gloomy face. Gu Yunjiao quickly ran into the kitchen, grabbing a hatchet in the corner of the kitchen and laying it across her chest. Chen Shi, who was chopping vegetables in the kitchen, looked up and asked, "What's wrong?" Before Gu Yunjiao could answer, Mrs. Yang rushed in holding the door latch. When she entered the door, she saw Gu Yunjiao standing there with a hatchet in hand, as if she wanted to fight her. Yang's footsteps paused for a while, but still charged towards Gu Yunjiao. Chen Shi stepped over to stop her. "Brother and sister, what are you doing? Where did Yunjiao provoke you?" Yang Shi looked at the kitchen knife in Chen Shi's hand, worried about being accidentally injured. He stopped and said angrily, "Look at Erlang. Erlang's arm doesn't know if it's dislocated or broken, it hurts to death, it's all this. It was made by Deathman Star." Gu Yunjiao looked at Yang Shi coldly. Except for the big room, the rest of the family called her, except for the little bitch, who was the Death Star. Today, I also like to mention a new name from Zhang Erlang, Little Biozi. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jinkui. Chapter 3. Chen Shi waved the kitchen knife. "No way, Yunjiao is thin and small, Erlang is tall and big, Yunjiao can beat him." Mrs. Yang stepped back. "Sister-in-law, can you put down the kitchen knife and talk again?" Chen squinted at her. "No, you are holding the latch, how can I put down my kitchen knife?" Yang stomped her foot and threw the door latch in her hand. "I don't care, anyway, this little bitch injured Erlang's arm. She is from your big house. You have to give Erlang money to go to the county to see a doctor." Chen sneered, "Want money? Impossible." Gu Yunjiao stood not far behind Chen Shi, and quickly recalled the memory of Chen Shi in her mind. Chen is her mother-in-law. The reason why she is so sturdy may have something to do with the dead man. If she is not strong, she will only be oppressed in such a big family. After Gu Yunjiao got married, except for the first few days, Chen Shi didn't pay much attention to her because of Dalan's death, but it was not bad after that. Chen Shi has never scolded her. When Zhang family scolded Gu Yunjiao for being a star, Chen Shi also defended her. Don't say it's so ugly, Dalan is already very sick, and the doctor can't cure it, so he died. As a living horse doctor, let her come to rejoice, and I can't blame her when Dalan is gone. Compared with the malicious Zhang family, he is simply a bodhisattva. At this moment, Gu Yunjiao walked behind Chen Shi and called out, "Mother." Chen Shi turned back and glanced at Gu Yunjiao, her face changed greatly. "What's wrong with your neck?" The voice also. Gu Yunjiao's complexion was fair, and at this moment, there was a black mark on her slender neck. Gu Yunjiao said lightly, "Zhang Erlang insulted me and pinched my neck just now. Almost got him." When Chen Shi heard this, two thick eyebrows stood up, and the kitchen knife pointed at Zhang Erlang. "Zhang Erlang, you filthy seed, Yunjiao is your sister-in-law. How dare you hit her idea?" Zhang Erlang's face became more and more gloomy, and he did not speak. Chen Shi pointed at the tip of Yang's nose again. "You still want to beat Yunjiao? You still have the face to ask me for money? Your Erlang is not as good as a beast. Look at what Yunjiao was pinched. You should give Yunjiao the silver. Yunjiao's neck was injured by this beast Erlang, so she has to see a doctor." She held a kitchen knife in one hand, spitting stars on Yang's face, and Yang's retreating. When Gu Yunjiao heard Chen Shi's words, her eyes turned slightly. "Mother is right, I am hurt like this, you should give me money." Before Yang could speak, she quickly said, "Give me a tael of silver, and I can help him heal his arm." Yang opened his mouth, and then scolded, "Little bitch, if you want to eat shit, I won't give it to you even if my mother's money is thrown into the water." Gu Yun said softly and leisurely, "It's more than 20 miles from here to the county seat. Even if you spend money to take a mule cart, it will be dark when you get to the county seat. Don't say I scare you, the longer it drags on, the harder the arm will be." Yang Shi said fiercely, "If I believed you, I would be a fool." She didn't dare to delay any longer, and turned to pull Zhang Erlang. Let's go to the town to find Dr. Su first." She accidentally pulled Zhang Erlang's right arm, and Zhang Erlang screamed again like a pig. The mother and son went out cursing. Chen Shi then turned to look at Gu Yunjiao. "You really know how to treat his arm. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth." Author, Jinkui. Chapter 4. Gu Yunjiao nodded. "Mother forgot. My father is a doctor, and I learned from him since I was a child." This is also to bluff Chen Shi. Her current father is a good doctor, and she followed her father to confirm the word and also learned some medical knowledge. Just this common sense is far from enough to cure the disease and save people. Her medical skills come from a previous life, and she was born into a medical family that has been passed down for hundreds of years. Chen Shi was not suspicious and nodded. "Then you still have a throat in your neck, so get some medicine to treat it yourself." She paused. "If you want to get medicine, I still have some copper coins here." Gu Yunjiao was really surprised. The family was not wealthy. She remembered listening to Chen's murmur a few days ago. For her son Zhang Sanlang, he went to the Fukan Kaiwei and borrowed 10 taels of silver from the next door. Her eyes flickered. "Thank you, mother, you don't need to take medicine. I will go to the back mountain to pick up some herbs by myself tomorrow." Chen Shi didn't say much, picked up the kitchen knife and continued to cut vegetables. Gu Yunjiao helped. Fried cowpea, mixed with cucumber, and lunch is ready. During the meal, 3 heads of the house, more than a dozen people, sat at 2 tables in the main room, one table for men and one table for women. The old lady of the Zhang family, Mrs. Zhou, asked, "Where's Erlang, and where are the eldest family members? Why didn't you come to dinner?" Chen Shi kept silent, and Gu Yunjiao lowered her head even more as if she did not hear. Zhang Rong, the second uncle of the Zhang family on the table next door, glanced at Gu Yunjiao. Erlang's arm was broken by Dalin's daughter-in-law, and the two of them went to the town to find Dr. Su. The great man of the Zhang family is gone, and now Erlang is the eldest grandson, and the weight of the eldest grandson is still very heavy in Zhou's heart. When Zhou Shi heard that his eldest grandson was injured, he was so distressed that he turned his head to look at Gu Yunjiao, sang Mengzing, "It's not enough for you to kill my eldest son, and you have come to harm my eldest son again." Chen Shi frowned, "Mother, it's not Yunjiao's fault, it's Zhang Erlang's beast who moved Yunjiao, so Yunjiao dash." Zhou Shi clapped the bowl with his chopsticks, "You shameless little prostitute, you must be the one who seduced Erlang." Morning Gate Star. Gu Yunjiao just treated Zhou Shi as a barking mad dog, turning a deaf ear, bowing her head to cook rice. At this time, the old man of the Zhang family, who was sitting at the top, suddenly looked out the door, "Shut up, the carriage is coming outside." He looked at Zhang Rong, "Go and see who is here." Zhang Rong put down his chopsticks and got up. He saw the carriage parked in the yard, and the curtain was lifted, revealing a young man as handsome as his Hylan and jade tree inside. Zhang Rong cried out with joy, "Sanlang is back." The people at the table immediately threw down their bowls and chopsticks and ran out. Only Mr. Zhang and Mrs. Zhou did not greet them with their identities, but even Mrs. Zhou stood up and looked out eagerly. Seeing that no one was paying attention to her, Gu Yunjiao took the opportunity to put some dishes in the bowl. Usually, when she picks up a little dish, she will be knocked on the back of her hand with chopsticks by Zhou's Yangs and others. At this time, she heard the old man Zhang ask the Zhou family, "Old lady, today is a dozen years." Zhou Shi thought for a while, "Today is 12. Old man Jiang's face changed greatly, 12. Isn't 12 autumn's second show? Why did Saburo come back?" Gu Yunjiao quickly cooked rice while listening to the conversation between the two. Zhang Yuji, the Saburo of the Zhang family, took the exam last year as a scholar. He went to Fukan to participate in the autumn festival a few days ago. But the person who should be taking the exam in Fukan has returned home. The atmosphere in this house may not be very good for a while, and she has to quickly eat her fill. Just as he was eating, he saw Zhang Yuzi came in surrounded by the crowd. "The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth." Author, Jinkui. Chapter 5. Gu Yunjiao quickly got up with the bowl in her hand, and moved to the back to stand. Zhang Rong blushed, "Quick, quick, Saburo has not eaten yet, brother and sister, go and cook some dishes for Saburo." The third aunt of the Zhang family, Mrs. Lu, agreed, but did not leave, and looked at Zhang Yuzi with flickering eyes. She is not as careless as Zhang Rong. She has already realized that before the exam is over, Zhang Yuzi came back strangely. Mr. Zhang looked at Zhang Yuzi with a heavy expression. Zhang Yuzi was watched by everyone, and said lightly, "Master, milk, mother, and the second uncle, the third uncle and the third aunt, I'm really sorry. The day before the test, I didn't know how to eat a bad stomach. I couldn't enter the test for the first time. After lying in the inn for 3 days, I got better. I called a car and came back." After speaking, the whole hall was dead silent. The old and the young all looked like they had suffered a huge blow. Only Gu Yunjiao was hiding in the corner, still eating. Her body is very thin now, and she must seize the opportunity to eat enough. Perhaps because her behavior was too different, Zhang Yuzi glanced at her. After a long while, Zhang Rong said, "Didn't take the test." Zhang Yuzi nodded. Chen Shi was obviously also hit, but she quickly regained her senses and touched her son's back, "Are you feeling better?" Do you want to ask the doctor to take a look? I think your face is sunken. Zhang Yuzi looked at Chen Shi, his eyes softened a lot. It's much better. Zhang Rong suddenly said loudly, I didn't take the exam this time, so wouldn't it take 3 years to take the exam again? Third Aunt Lu murmured, oh, why did you eat so carelessly and break your stomach? The third uncle Zhang Hua slapped his thigh fiercely, I said let me accompany Saburo, because you are reluctant to give up the money, saying that one more person will cost a lot more money. This is good, it's all over. These few words made the atmosphere in the room even more stagnant. Gu Yunjiao was holding her rice bowl and looked at Zhang Yuzi with some sympathy. Now he seems to be a sinner in this family. With her toes, she knew what these people were thinking. It was nothing more than the high cost of studying. Zhang Yuzi didn't make it this time, and the family would have to pay him for 3 years, which was a lot of money. It's different when you are in the middle. Naturally, some people send money and property to their door to seek shelter, and the family can follow along and live a good life. Gu Yunjiao had already finished her meal, and she went out through the back door without making a sound, and as soon as she went out, she heard Joshi's scolding, it's all that morning star, who killed my great man, and killed my sick Erlang. And Saburo, how can this be, how are you going to spend this day dash? Gu Yunjiao sneered and went around the kitchen from the back of the house with her rice bowl. She knew that any unsatisfactory things in this family could be pinned on her head, and she was a scapegoat. Zhang Yuzi stood in the main room, neither happy nor sad. He already knew what was waiting for him when he came back. Joshi was just referring to Sang's scolding why. He was held like a phoenix egg in this family, not because the family loved him so much, but because he was profitable. Now the family's hopes have failed, and his life should not be too easy for the next 3 years. Although Chen Shi was also disappointed, she was more concerned about her son's health. She pulled Zhang Yuzi to sit down, it's fine when you come back. Don't say anything else, eat first. She turned around and called her daughter, Sanya, go and serve a bowl of rice for your third brother. Forget it, I'll go. I'll fry an egg for your brother by the way. After Chen Shi finished speaking, he reached out to Joshi, mother, give me 2 eggs. Joshi slowly raised his eyelids, the eggs still have to be saved to exchange for money when we go to the market. What kind of eggs are there to eat, isn't there still vegetables? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jinkui. Chapter 6. Zhang Yuzi glanced at Zhou's and smiled at Chen's, mother, I'm not healthy enough, I can't eat meat and fish, a bowl of white rice is enough. Mrs. Chen patted his hand, and immediately lowered her face to Mrs. Zhou, mother, what do you mean? Sanlang didn't take the exam this time, and that's not his fault either. Why, you're not even qualified to eat eggs if you don't succeed. Before the Zhou family could speak, Zhang Erlang's younger brother, Shiro, who was 15 years old, called out, Auntie, I usually let the third brother eat all the eggs in this family, and I also work for the family. I want to ask, am I not qualified to eat eggs? Goro of the third room also whispered at this time, I also want to eat eggs. Also, I want to read too. Arya of the third room also lowered her eyes, who doesn't want to eat eggs? Zhang Yuzi lowered his eyes, his family's resources were limited, and now all the resources were tilted to him, and the brothers would inevitably have complaints. He also thought about it before, when he was elected, and then returned to the family, now it seems that it is still too simple. Do not suffer from the few but suffer from inequity. When Gu Yunjiao came from the kitchen with a bowl of rice, she happened to hear Shiro Goro's words. She stood at the door and hesitated for a while, but walked in and put the rice bowl and chopsticks in front of Zhang Yuzi. In this family, in addition to the Chen family, Zhang Yuzi also once defended her. Whoever treats her well will treat her well. After putting down her job, Gu Yunjiao left. She was afraid that she would go too slowly and get burned again. Zhang Yuzi was also hungry, so he sat down to eat unhurriedly. Everyone also sat down and ate in silence. Gu Yunjiao went back to the kitchen and took the rusted hatchet to the sharpening stone. She decided to carry this knife with her wherever she went. It's impossible for Zhang Erlang to give up so easily. As soon as there was silence in the main room, the sound of sharpening knives in the kitchen was a bit harsh. The impetuous Zhang Rong scolded, "Little slut, at noon, I don't know what to do with sharpening knives." The meal was finished in a dull atmosphere. The men got up and went back to the house, while Chen and Sanya cleaned up the dishes. Zhang Yuzi just helped to clean up, but Chen hurriedly stopped him. "You have to hold the pen in this hand, put it away, I and your sister will put it away in 2 clicks. Zhang Yuzi knew that he couldn't beat his mother, so he turned around and went out. When they went out, they saw Yang Shi and Zhang Erlang walking towards the house aggressively. As Mr. Yang walked away, he raised his voice and shouted, "Gu Yunjiao, you little bitch, hurry up and give me Erlang's arm." Just now, she and Erlang went to a town 2 miles away and went to see Dr. Su. Dr. Su shook his head and said that he was not good at treating injuries from falls. He also told Mr. Yang that he should find a doctor as soon as possible to attach his arm. After a long time, even if his arm was attached, he might not be able to exert his strength in the future. Yang Shi and Zhang Erlang became anxious now, thinking that the county town was too far away, so they went home to find Gu Yunjiao. Zhang Yuzi frowned when he heard Yang's scolding, and turned to ask Chen's second aunt, "Why is this crazy?" Chen Shi lowered his voice and said, "Erlang's arm was broken, Yunjiao did it." "Erlang, that bastard, was doing something to your sister-in-law today, and Yunjiao's neck was about to be snapped by him." Zhang Yuzi's expression turned cold, and he glanced coldly at Zhang Erlang, who got off the bus. In the kitchen, Gu Yunjiao was sweating profusely from sharpening the knife, and she just stopped to rest when she heard Yang's cry. She clenched the hatchet in her hand, came out of the kitchen, and said lightly, "It's okay to treat the arm. Second aunt brings the money, and I'll treat it right away. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth." Author, Jinkui. Chapter 7. Yang Shi jumped up and scolded, "You morning star, little prostitute, how dare you ask the old lady for money? Mother dash." Second aunt Zhang Yuzi interrupted her loudly after hearing her scolding. Only then did Mrs. Yang see Zhang Yuzi. She was stunned for a moment, and then burst into a smile. "Yo, our family's Wenkuxing is back. How did you do in the test? Is the middle lift stable?" Zhang Yuzi shook his head slowly, "If I can't pass, I won't take the exam at all." Yang's face turned pale. The whole family cut down on food and clothing to provide for Saburo to study, and they only hoped that he would pass the Jinshi examination and become an official in the future. Why didn't he take the exam? Wouldn't that be another 3 years of hardship? Yang Shi couldn't tell whether he was sad or disappointed for a while, and the whole person was dazed. At this time, Mrs. Lu from the 3rd room came out of the room. She could hear clearly in the room and made a fuss when she came out. "Oh, who made Erlang's arm like this? It doesn't matter." Hearing her words, Zhang Erlang remembered that he accidentally moved his arm several times along the way, and the pain was so painful that he was full of anger. He picked up a wooden stick and rushed towards Gu Yunjiao cursingly, "Little prostitute, I will kill you today." Zhang Yuzi stepped over and stopped him. "What is the second brother going to do?" Zhang Erlang said impatiently, "What's the matter with you? This little prostitute owes a lesson, I have to teach her a lesson." Zhang Yuzi said coldly, "Is there no Wangfa in the eyes of the second brother? As for today's matter, if sister-in-law goes to sue the official, you will have to fight dozens of boards and do hard labor for a year. Do you want to try?" Zhang Erlang was stunned for a moment. He said, so what? Does she dare to sue? Does she lose her reputation? Aren't she afraid of being spit on? Gu Yunjiao picked up the hatchet in her hand and waved it. I'm really not afraid. I don't plan to get married anymore, what else do I need to do with fame? She waved the hatchet and took a few steps forward. Come on, this knife doesn't have eyes, if it cuts somewhere in a while, don't blame me. It's no use for me to live. If I kill you, I'm willing to pay for my life. As the saying goes, the soft is afraid of the hard is afraid of the horizontal, and the horizontal is afraid of death. At this moment, Zhang Erlang is the one who will be sidelined, and Gu Yunjiao is the one who doesn't want to die. Seeing the hatchet gleaming brightly in the sun, Zhang Erlang suddenly did not dare to go forward. He threw the stick in his hand away, but he still scolded and scolded. Yang Shi was really anxious beside him. It's been an hour or two, this arm is still not healed, it's going to be abolished. She hesitated and took out her purse, looked at Gu Yunjiao and said, can you really cure it? Gu Yunjiao just looked at her with a half smile, but Yang Shi gritted her teeth. That's true, then you can treat it, but it's all from your own family, can you have a little less money? Is it enough for 2 coins? At this time, Mrs. Chen went into the kitchen with a bunch of tableware and chopsticks, and took the time to smile at Mrs. Yang. Brother and sister, why don't you understand? Go to the county to find a doctor. If you waste time, you will spend more money. You give Yunjiao the silver sooner, and treat it sooner, so that Erlang won't be hurt. Zhang Yuzi saw that Yang was still hesitating, his eyes flashed, he raised his foot to leave, and accidentally touched Zhang Erlang's injured arm. Zhang Erlang screamed again like a pig. Zhang Yuzi apologized very insincerely, I'm sorry, second brother, I just didn't pay attention. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jinkui. Chapter 8. Zhang Erlang howled a few times and said angrily, what did you not pay attention to? I think you did it on purpose. You are helping that little prostitute. The corners of Gu Yunjiao's mouth were slightly raised, and she couldn't tell that Zhang Yuzi was quite black. Zhang Erlang couldn't bear the pain, turned around and snatched Yang's money bag, reached out and touched it, found a piece of silver or two, took it out and threw it in the direction of Gu Yunjiao. Gu Yunjiao's eyes were quick and her hands were quick, she reached out and grabbed the silver in her hand. She turned around and entered the kitchen, and said loudly, Mother, I'll give you the silver. Chen Shi, who was washing dishes, was startled, for me? The money you earn, take it yourself. Gu Yunjiao shoved the silver into Chen's arms and smiled, it's still my mother holding it. She knew that she couldn't hold these 2 pieces of silver, and Joshi would soon find fault and take the money away. If she didn't give it, she would be beaten. It was different when the silver was given to the Chen family. She also wanted to save money, but not now. After giving the money, she turned around and came out, still holding the hatchet in her hand. Zhang Erlang looked at her viciously, the silver is also given to you, and I will treat it quickly. If you dare to deceive Laozi's money, if you can't cure it, see how Laozi will deal with you. Gu Yunjiao hesitated for a while, then glanced at Zhang Yuzi. Her eyes seemed to be able to speak, and Zhang Yuzi quickly understood what she meant. She wants to give Erlangji an arm, and it is impossible to hold a knife. But once the knife was put down, she had no sense of security. Zhang Yuzi approached Zhang Erlang calmly, and then nodded slightly to Gu Yunjiao. Gu Yunjiao breathed a sigh of relief, then put down the hatchet and walked towards Zhang Erlang. She reached out and grabbed Zhang Erlang's arm, and suddenly looked up at the sky. Ah, what a big pig flying in the sky. Zhang Erlang instinctively followed and looked up at the sky. At this moment, Gu Yunjiao pulled and pushed her arm back. She quickly ran back. Zhang Erlang still raised his head, where are the pigs flying in the sky? Zhang Yuzi next to him couldn't help laughing. Only then did Zhang Erlang realize that he had been fooled. He raised his arm in anger and pointed at Gu Yunjiao. Are you kidding me? Just wait for me, I won't let you go. The Yang Shi next to him cried out in surprise, Erlang, your arm is really good. Only then did Zhang Erlang realize that he had just raised his right arm. He tried to move, and his arms moved freely and without pain. Yang Shi then felt distressed again. Just push it like this, is it worth a tael of silver? My darling, I didn't even hear a sound. Zhang Yuzi glanced at Yang's, and said seriously, 1 tael of silver is not expensive. Last time my classmate dislocated his arm just like Erlang. The doctor in the county picked it up for him and received 2 taels of silver. In fact, the doctor didn't take the money, but he knew very well that if he didn't say so, the Yang family would only scold Gu Yunjiao for 3 days and 3 nights. During dinner in the evening, Zhou Shi took an unprecedented look at Gu Yunjiao. Do you know how to see a doctor? Gu Yunjiao blinked. Some diseases can be treated, and some diseases can't be treated. As for which ones will and which ones won't, that's up to her. Zhou Shi didn't speak, and lowered his eyes, not knowing what he was thinking. After dinner, Gu Yunjiao followed behind Chen into the room. She hesitated for a while. Mother, I want to go back to her mother's house tomorrow. Chen turned around. It's time to go back. You haven't returned since you got married. It's done. It happens that Saburo is at home. Let Saburo take you back tomorrow. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jin Kui. Chapter 9. Gu Yunjiao waved her hand. Mother, no need, it's only a few miles away, and it won't be long before you arrive. Chen Shi whispered, I'm worried that Erlang won't give up. If you go alone, I'm not sure he will do something. Gu Yunjiao thought about it too. Even if you have a hatchet, you may not be able to beat Zhang Erlang. After all, the role of the hatchet is actually to deter. Chen Shi hesitated for a while. Eunuch, if your mother asks tomorrow. Gu Yunjiao pursed her lips and didn't speak. Her mother wouldn't care about this. Chen Shi took out the 1 or 2 silver coins that Gu Yunjiao gave. Go and buy something for your mother. Although Dallin is gone, you are always my daughter-in-law, and it would not look good to go home empty-handed. Gu Yunjiao pushed the silver back. Mother, you can take this silver with peace of mind. I don't have to buy anything when I get home. Seeing that Gu Yunjiao insisted, Chen Shi didn't say anything. At the same time, Mrs. Zhou called Mrs. Yang into the upper room, and the two chatted for a long time before Mrs. Yang came out of the upper room. Gu Yunjiao fell asleep early. In the middle of the night, she woke up suddenly, and she dreamed of the earthquake again. She was standing where she was before the earthquake, in her family's herbal medicine storehouse. She opened her eyes and found that she was really in the herbal medicine storehouse. Gu Yunjiao's grandfather and uncle are both national Chinese medicine practitioners. In the past, when the prescription was prescribed, the patient was told to go to a time-honored brand in Beijing to pick up the medicine. The medicine there is genuine and of good quality. Unexpectedly, there was a time when a patient called and responded that the medicine had little effect. Grandpa was puzzled. He had confidence in his prescription. It could only be a problem with the medicine. He asked the patient to look at the unfried medicine, but found that the most expensive medicine, musk, was deducted by half of the medicine. Musk is very expensive, and 1 gram of good quality natural musk in the market today costs 700 or 800. Later, the pharmacy filled up the musk, and said it was a mistake because its own scale could not measure the weight as small as a gram. But since then, Grandpa no longer trusts the pharmacies outside, collects the medicinal materials by himself, and concocts some important medicinal materials by himself. When a patient comes to see a doctor again, the medicine will be taken from his own medicine store. Her family's drugstore, said to be a drugstore, is actually a drugstore with a full range of products, and the furnishings are similar to that of a drugstore. It's just that this pharmacy is not open to the outside world, only the prescriptions that are prepared by their own home. At this moment, Gu Yunjiao looked at the whole wall of medicine cabinets, then looked at the deer antlers on the shelves, the tiger bone deer antlers, musk bezoar and ginseng gastrodia in the fine material counter. She twisted her arm. It hurt, not a dream. She suddenly had a kind of enlightenment in her heart, and the medicinal herbs store followed her across. She happily walked to the door. Would she open the door and go back? She twisted the handle, but the door wouldn't open. She looked out the window, and there was nothingness outside the window, as if shrouded in a white mist. Gu Yunjiao was a little disappointed. When she came out of the medicine store, she found that she was still lying on the bed with 3 girls sleeping beside her. Gu Yunjiao couldn't sleep anymore. She moved in her heart and entered the medicine store again. She casually opened a drawer, and there was licorice in it. She grabbed a handful of licorice and thought about getting it out. The man lay on the bed again with a handful of licorice in his hand. Gu Yunjiao was a little excited that the medicine in the medicine store could be used outside. If nothing else, with this drugstore in hand, her future survival will be guaranteed. Gu Yunjiao was excited for a long time before she fell asleep again in a daze. Early the next morning, Gu Yunjiao was woken up by a sound of hush hush. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jin Kui. Chapter 10. The sound came from outside the window. Gu Yunjiao pushed open the window and saw that Zhang Yuzi was practicing swordsmanship in the yard. Tossing and turning, it looked a lot like that. She raised her brows, but she didn't expect Zhang Yuzi to be both civil and military. The movement of opening the window alarmed Zhang Yuzi, and his eyes were like electricity, shooting towards him. Gu Yunjiao quickly closed the window and went to wash up. After breakfast, Gu Yunjiao set off with a handkerchief around her neck. Although Zhang Yuzi followed behind, she still had a hatchet in her waist. Her parents' village is next to Jiangjia village, and it is 7 or 8 miles away. Zhang Yuzi was about 4 or 5 meters away from Gu Yunjiao. As he walked all the way, his eyes fell on Gu Yunjiao inadvertently. She was wearing a muslin ruffle skirt of azure blue, with a light blue belt around her waist. The slender waist is full of a grip, and it swings naturally when walking, with a moving sense of rhythm. After walking 3 or 4 miles away, Zhang Yuzi saw a big stone on the side of the road, and shouted to the front, "Take a break and then go." He could still walk, but he noticed that Gu Yunjiao's speed was much slower than before, so she probably couldn't walk anymore. He didn't call his sister-in-law either. He couldn't speak to a girl younger than him who looked delicate and weak. Gu Yunjiao stopped, took the handkerchief and brushed it on the big stone, and greeted Zhang Yuzi, "You sit here." Zhang Yuzi shook his head, "No need, I'll stand for a while, you sit by yourself." Gu Yunjiao glanced at the stone and then at Zhang Yuzi. "The stone is quite big." Zhang Yuzi immediately understood what Gu Yunjiao meant. The stone is big, and it is more than enough for 2 people to sit. He hesitated for a moment, then strode over and sat down on the side of the stone. Gu Yunjiao turned her back to him and sat down on the other side of the stone. The two sat down, and at the end of the road came a slightly fat old lady. Auntie stared at these 2 people from a distance, and when they got close, she smiled cheerfully at Gu Yunjiao. "Yunjiao, are you going back to your mother's house?" Gu Yunjiao smiled at her. "Yes, Aunt Wang." Aunt Wang squeezed onto the stone and sat down, turned her head and looked at Zhang Yuzi with a smile. "This is your husband?" "Oh, why is this young man so handsome?" Zhang Yuzi blushed slightly, stood up and bowed his hands. Just about to explain, Gu Yunjiao said lightly, "Aunt Wang, you have misunderstood. This is my uncle. My mother-in-law was afraid that the road would be difficult to walk, So she specially asked him to take me here. On the day the marriage passed, the husband was gone. Aunt Wang opened her mouth for a long time and couldn't close it. What do you mean, you are now a widow? Gu Yunjiao nodded. Aunt Wang sighed, that's true, I said at the time that I couldn't do this kind of happy thing, and your mother didn't listen. I remember you haven't turned 15 yet, you might as well find someone else to marry. Later, she glanced at Zhang Yuzi and swallowed it in her stomach. Aunt Wang suddenly slapped her thigh. By the way, someone said before that, I saw someone in Fukin who looked like your father, but I'll ask them later, but I won't be able to find them again. After your mother heard about it, she is now planning to sell the house and go to Fukin to find your father. Chiener also asked my boss to find a buyer for her.